Hello there, welcome to this video on the Ten of Wands. We saw in the last video this quality of strength drawing on deep within us, the subconscious elements, bringing those into our consciousness and gaining strength from going within. Whereas in the Ten of Wands we have a different type of energy, which is oppression, and it's these two wands here which have been stretched into restraining bars, which are the problem. These two wands here with the Tibetan figureheads on the top, we initially saw in the Two of Wands here, and the card is very similar in meaning to the Rider-Waite card, where you see here someone under great strain, carrying an excess load. So we'll have a look at the divinatory meanings of this card first and then move on to the more esoteric aspects. Fortunately, there's not a great deal of symbolism in this particular card, so hopefully it'll be a shorter video. Looking at the divinatory meanings for the Ten of Wands in the upright position, it could mean that our desire to do something is blocked and hampered, so no matter how hard we try, we can't seem to reach our goal, and it can make us lose faith in ourselves and our ability to get what we want. If it comes up in the final position of a spread, such as the Celtic cross, it could mean don't waste any more time in a situation that you cannot win, and you may need to add some further cards for clarification of that. Could mean a work or relationship situation in which we're not really allowed to experience life as we would like, and we are weighed down with too much pressure, or perhaps having an overly controlling or demanding partner. In relation to spiritual experiences, it could mean that we're actually feeling trapped in the state that we are in and that we don't seem to be progressing, or it could mean that, like, after having great realizations, we now need to deal with the mundane world again. So in that circumstance, being in a physical body still allows us to help others along their spiritual path and inspire them through our own realizations and experiences. Fifth point here, just someone in your life who is overly ambitious in a material sense and pursues their goals to the detriment of you and others around them. Moving on to the reverse meanings for the Ten of Wands, these tend to be more entrenched versions of the upright. I've put self-harm, destructive habits down there. It can be related to this card, or more to do with the Nine of Swords, which is cruelty. So it depends what the surrounding cards are. Emotional problems as a result of being unable to express or connect with our emotions. So our emotions are not flowing. Domestic violence, bullying, generosity or self-sacrifice in a destructive or intimidating situation, such as if you've ever been in a situation whereby you've been intimidated to give someone money and you haven't felt as if you want to, but the situation has been intimidating for you and you've handed it over, and that's the sort of scenario that this is linking to. Losing your sense of identity and what you want from your life due to a repressive work or personal environment. Feeling as if you're losing your natural spirit and inspiration. And I think the last point here is a long-term relationship with someone who is materialistic and oppressive to your spirituality and outlook on life. And that results in a lack of spontaneity and excitement, and you'd have to look at other cards in the reading to look for ways to resolve that. Okay, we'll move on to the next section, which is to do with the Ten of Wands and the Tree of Life. So here we see a diagram of the Tree of Life, And looking at all of the tens for the minor arcana, we can see the pattern of the Tree of Life can be superimposed on the actual card in every case other than the 10 of Wands here. So we'll look at each one of these in turn when we come to the relevant video. But going back to this initial diagram here, the 10s are associated with path number 10, the final Sephiroth, which is Malkut, and this has the title, the Resplendent Intelligence. Resplendent intelligence means that which illuminates the splendor of all of the lights, or all of the other Sephira here. And that might seem a little bit unusual because this is the only Sephiroth which is not involved in a triangle, because you have the 3 triangles that we've talked about in the previous cards for the wands, and this is the sort of lowest part of the tree, but it receives energy from all of the Sephira above it. And I guess this is rather like the fact that you can't achieve enlightenment without having a physical body. It's that necessary vehicle, even though it's the lowest manifestation of spirit being in matter. At the same time, it's necessary to have that, and therefore you have a witness of the whole of creation at once. So it's a bit of an unusual Sephiroth, this, because on one hand it represents matter, and yet on the other hand it's a necessary vehicle for the spiritual path, and also for teaching and spreading spirituality. And what soul work is, which is what some of the Alice Bailey teachings talk about, is the aligning of the different bodies, so that when you have spiritual realizations, you are the most balanced that you could possibly be, so that you're a good expression for that divine knowledge. In relation to the 4 worlds, we've got Malkut in Azalut here, which is the first world of fiery inspiration, and in this element of fire we have the 10 of Wands, the furthest away from spirit as it possibly could be. So as I mentioned earlier, in Hokmar here we had the 2 of Wands, where these wands were close to the spiritual source, Keta, and therefore you had we've got Mars in Aries there, and this force was used to go out and express yourself in the world and claim your future, being proactive. Whereas because this energy in a worldly sense in the 10 of Wands is so far removed from Keta being at the top here, so it's so far removed that these 2 wands now become oppressive. So this can lead to personal qualities such as selfishness or being overly ambitious, controlling of others without considering their feelings, that sort of thing. So it's like, as with all the cards, it's a double-edged sword to their meaning. So we'll have a look at the numerology next. Short section now on the numerology of the 10. So the 10 represents the point at which the sequence of the 9 single digits, represented by the ace to the 9 of Wands, that sequence has ended. And so we have the ending of a cycle in the 10, and therefore they can be associated with fulfillment, reaching one's limits, abundance, but also having excess and stagnation. These are the other side of the coin with regards to the 10. The 10s represent situations in which we can feel oppressed by these limitations, so we can be stagnating, but they do offer the potential for change into a new and deeper meaning for life, and we can demonstrate that by splitting down the components of the 10 into the 1 and the 0. So we have the unity, in a sense, that sense of completion, but also the circle encloses, and therefore you have a limit. And what the 10 does have within it is the potential in the ace, or the 1. So we have the potential for change into a new and deeper meaning for our life. And as I said, we often see this by when people have reached their goal and you just have a sense of, well, life has now lost its meaning, or they just stagnate within that, and you always need this potential to move forward in life, for life to be fulfilling. It's also related to the tetractys here, which is to do with Pythagoras and the Greek number system, whereby you have the 10 dots and the equilateral triangles within the big triangle. So 10 was seen as, in the Greek number system, as representing completeness, and it was seen as the perfect number. So that's a little bit about the numerology. As I say, if we look at the 10s there, we've got oppression, satiety, ruin, wealth. So we have quite a mixed bag within each of the 10s there. So we go on now to look at the astrological associations of the 10 of Wands. Moving on to the astrological correspondence of the 10 of Wands, we have the 2 glyphs here enclosed within the 2 doges here. So we have a kind of restriction. We've got Saturn on the top and Sagittarius at the bottom. And Saturn and Sagittarius produces a rather difficult energy. This is the main diagram with the decan wheel here, and we see Saturn here in Sagittarius occupying the last decan of Sagittarius here before it changes to Capricorn. And this is the close-up of it. And indeed, Sagittarius is a mutable sign, which means it's changeable, sort of flexible, and Sagittarius, being a mutable fire sign, wants to go out, the arrow flies, it wants to expand, grow, learn, explore. It's also it's got a very philosophical and spiritual side. And Saturn is very restrictive. Saturn is the planet of discipline, organisation, grounding. So Crowley actually says Sagittarius is swift, or is spiritual, swift, light, elusive, like the arrow. Saturn is material, slow, heavy, obstinate, and obscure. And so we have this clash of energies for the 10 of Wands. So that, translated into the meaning of the card, again means that the 3, as I said in the beginning when I was talking about divinatory meanings, oppression is the oppression of the fire, like the soul, our inspiration that wants to grow, expand and explore, and Saturn is the oppressing bit. But you know, Saturn can have a positive influence on Sagittarius because it does have a grounding effect, but in this particular case, obviously we're dealing with oppression, and therefore Saturn is too dominant an energy. Right, we'll now move on to the symbolism of the card. Before we move on to the symbolism, I should have just mentioned this with regards to the astrology. With the Ten of Wands, as I said, it's the last decan of Sagittarius, which is a mutable sign. With the Ten of Cups, we've got the last decan of Pisces, and that represents a time of the spring equinox before Pisces changed to Aries. Pisces again being a mutable sign. And with the Ten of Swords, we have the last decan of Gemini, where we get the summer solstice. And lastly, the Ten of Discs here in the last decan of Virgo, again a mutable sign, where we get the autumn equinox. So it's this, again relating back to the meaning of the card, I said it was, even though it was a completion of things, and this last decan does actually complete each sign, it is a transition stage, and we must move on to the next stage in our life if we don't want to like stagnate. So with that said, we'll move on to the symbolism now, and there's not a great deal to talk about. I've talked a fair bit about the two main wands there in the middle, and it's got 8 wands in the background which crisscross. These have claws and barbs here to try and sort of free themselves without success, and this is sort of more of a primal energy. It's like when we feel oppressed, we then go to our sort of primal instincts to get out of that situation. So that's what these sort of barbs are trying to represent. The flames here are emanating from the junctions of the cross wands, and they are fairly distorted and in the background and suppressed, which is the suppression of our inspiration, our will. The orange background reminds us of Qabalah, which is the 5th Sephiroth in Absolute. And this emphasizes the severity of Qabalah, which is it's sort of ruled by Mars, and it's associated with the 5 of Wands, which is called strife, and it's that 5 of Wands, that sort of energy that's coming in to play with this card. So that's about it for the symbolism. We'll now move on to the last section, which brings us back to divination and the Celtic cross. This is the last section of the video when we look at the application of the Ten of Wands to the Celtic cross. So for the first position here, card number 1, and card in the center here, it could mean feeling oppressed in your current work or relationship situation, and you feel you're really unable to express yourself and explore your potential. Position number 2, crossing, the need to deal with a person or situation that is stopping you from experiencing your life fully. So obviously with this card number 2 here, you're going to get a different card under in the first position. So whatever that is in position number 1, we have an oppressing energy here in card number 2. In position number 3, subconscious influences. Perhaps we don't feel worthy enough to find our true self-expression. Perhaps we've had a time when we have been oppressed, dominated and put down. You know, it's amazing that happens a lot to people. Or we could be just weighed down by the decisions that we've made in our life so far. So counselling at this stage can help overcoming negative thought and behaviour patterns. Also there's things like the tapping technique, emotional freedom technique, all sorts of things to be able to overcome subconscious difficulties. We now have the card in position number 4. Here, recent past influencing the situation. So we essentially could be coming out of a dominating relationship where we now feel free to explore life's adventures again, So I think a lot of people have been in that situation where they have had their inspiration and their self-worth challenged by an over-domineering partner. Position number 5 here at the top is about hopes and goals. It could be that you want to reduce your work commitments so you can travel like the arrow in Sagittarius, have fun and live life more spontaneously. In position number 6, our near future could indicate a situation that is likely to reduce our free time and bog us down with responsibility. That's Saturn coming into play. Card number 7, I've done a reversal this time just to add some spice into it, but it's essentially the same thing. This should read putting up with an overly dominant and controlling person in your life, so that, as I indicated at the beginning, reversals are a more entrenched position. So this could be like a long-term situation that has gone on, perhaps in a marriage or in a work circumstance. Again, of a similar theme in position number 8, our external environment. If that is oppressive, our time is in great demand. It could be due to family life, young children, teenage children, that sort of thing. So we have a lot of responsibility that's weighing us down, middle age creeping upon us, and realising that we're not quite as fancy free as what we were when we were in our younger years. All those types of situations can apply. In position number 9, guidance, advice, warnings. I've said really there's a need to sort of reconnect with your heart, the source of your inspiration. That's where things come from, your heart, your soul, and beginning to remove these oppressive situations. Otherwise, these will continue to dominate your life and sort of trap that sort of free seeking spirit inside. In position number 10, overall outcome, it's advising us to cut a situation loose that we've been putting time and energy into and not getting our food for the soul from. It's reminding us that in order to have our freedom, we need to end an oppressive relationship or an overly demanding and dull job. So the themes are very similar running through the various different positions of this card, the 10 of Wands. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I'll probably move on to the court cards of the Wands first. Either that or the Ace of Cups. Take care. Bye for now.